I love Pettit, oh yes sirree. Is leaving, I'm so sorry. We've done some wacky and crazy things. Just the thought of him makes me sing. I love Pettit, oh yes sirree. Hope he's happy as he can be. Goodbye, good luck. Keep in touch, oh please. At least we still have our memories. I know, keep my day job. Goodbye, buddy. I'll miss you.
As many of you will remember, Tom was the only television reporter on Live when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot in Dallas. In fact, Tom still holds the record of repeating the same line over and over and over by saying, Oswald has been shot. Oswald has been shot. He repeated the same line for 84 straight time, a television news record. And as a matter of fact, Tom was so well loved those days that once that he was taken off the air just a few years back, I received a call one day here at the Bureau, and it was an irate viewer who was saying, "What have you done with Tom Pettit? He's my favorite. I miss his reports out of Washington. What's the matter with you guys? Why don't you put Tom Pettit back on the air?" And I broke in and I said, "Sir, you'll be very pleased to know that Tom Pettit today is the executive vice president of NBC News. We're very proud of him. He's our big boss. He's our #1 man. He's our leader. Isn't that wonderful?" And there was silence on the other end. And finally the viewer said, "Well, hell, I didn't think he was that damn good." Tom, we love you. Have a good retirement.
Tom, I want to wish you a happy retirement. I remember how you covered my campaign in New Hampshire in 1980. I think Elizabeth and I were in the car, and the wheels were spinning, and you said, "This campaign is going nowhere." And you were right. And you've been right a lot of times since, but I've certainly enjoyed working with you. Have a well-deserved happy retirement, and you can't find anything else to do. Come out and help me in my campaign. Thanks very much.
Tom hired me during that brief moment when he was running things at NBC. I don't know if my hiring had anything to do with how quickly he returned to the field, but my wife always thought so. Who else would have hired a guy with the name of Lucky from Virgin, Utah with a beard? I knew something had to go. Tom told me my new name would be John. I said, "Why not Jack or Tom?" And he said, "No, John." Later I discovered that anyone who was hired at NBC with an odd name became John. A couple of years later, my name was changed to Lucky for one brief day when the vice president then, who had Tom's old job, whose name was John, protested that I might be standing in at the White House doing a stand-up when President Reagan's dog, whose name was Lucky, ran between my legs. So they changed my name back to Jack for 2 months, and then finally Lucky. My friends started calling me JJL. I think Tom hired me partly because in my audition tape I was mimicking him, not in jest but in earnest. I always thought that he was the best utilitarian of words in the business. If he used a word, it had a reason. Unfortunately, that never rubbed off on me. I still can't sign off in less than a minute 45. Anyway, tonight, Tom, I am going to toast to sake in your honor because there are so few Toms to toast anymore. Good luck. Sayonara.
I want to thank Tom from the bottom of my heart because there's only a few of us left since his days as vice president, who haven't been fired. And I also want to thank him for putting me in a 15-year battle with the Burbank Bureau because it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon in that palatial office of his up at 30 Rock that we sat down and he was carving out the Denver Bureau and he said, "Now what territory you want, O'Neill?" And I said, "I don't know. What should I have?" And he pulled out this road atlas from Rand McNally and said, "Oh, why don't you take Arizona and New Mexico and Utah and Nevada?" And I said, "Terrific." Well, those were all Burbank states. And we haven't settled that argument yet.
It's sort of the sagebrush rebellion.
Sagebrush won. Thanks, Tom. Good luck to you.
Tom, there's one thing he doesn't know. It goes all the way back to our days in Little Rock, when we were doing the story in Little Rock. He knows that I got him to do a shot on the local affiliate show. What he doesn't know is that I knew all along it was dialing for dollars, but didn't tell him ahead of time.
And he got on the air and we thought it was noon news, and it turned out to be Dialing for Dollars, and I knew all along. Sorry, Tom, but you were great, Dialing for Dollars, and the woman who won the money was very happy you chose her. Good luck.
Well, Tom Pettit was the guy who sent me to Germany. Now, I'm not sure if that was a favor or not, but Tom's the guy that I either have to give credit to or blame to. And then, of course, I always enjoyed Pettit's visits to Moscow when he came and tried to drink up all the vodka over there. And so we tried to get other correspondents to come in. But, no, I'm really sorry to see Tom go. Tom, I got to tell you, you're the best, and we are all going to really miss you here at NBC. But have a wonderful time, and don't forget to tell Patricia to bring the Aramis. Take care, Tom. Bye-bye.
Tom, you hired me 11 years ago. Now, I've got an hour and 10 minutes. We haven't even looked at the tape. We're going to crash. We're burning. I got ulcers. I'm sick. I haven't slept in 4 days, and I blame all of this on you. We miss you. Thanks. I'm not sure whether to thank you or hate you for hiring me, but anyway, goodbye from Oklahoma. We love you. Okay? Bye-bye.
Tom Pettit, you little shit. I had to come all the way to Oklahoma to get away from you this Saturday. God bless you. Good luck to you. Could someone please pass me that eclair?
Shaking in my boots with $30,000 en route to bail out Brian Ross. This is Ed Croft, wishing you the greatest retirement, and thanks for all those great years, Tom. Good luck.
I remember meeting Pettit the very first time back in 1971 on the morning of the Sylmar earthquake in Southern California. And it was my first exposure, number one, to Tom Pettit, NBC news correspondent, who I had watched over the years while working in local television. And secondly, my first involvement in any kind of network news presentation. And I can tell him now that I was scared to death. And he was very kind and very generous and very giving on that morning. And through the years, he has been a very, very good friend. Thomas, I have no idea what your plans are, but know that I wish you Godspeed, and I wish you well. And I thank you for all of your kindnesses to me over the years, and I hope that in your retirement, our paths will cross. Have a great time, Tom, and thank you for making me a part of your farewell day. Bye now.
I remember that in 1966, Reuben sent me out to Burbank so that you could teach me the difference between being a local reporter and being a network correspondent. And I remember that one of the first things you taught me was the difference between what is a network story and what is what you used to call a popcorn fart of a story. One of those elegant and cultured phrases you used to use before you reformed. That was back in the days of the Berkeley demonstrations, the anti-war demonstrations. And I remember that you hired a kid at Berkeley to be our stringer up there. His name was Jan Winter, and he went on to found something called Rolling Stone magazine. And these days, he could probably buy and sell either one of us. You really did know how to spot a talent in those days. You taught me a lot in those days, how to travel, how to deal with camera crews. I can't tell you how many times I have repeated your mantra to a camera crew, which was, you are my eyes and ears. If you don't see what I see and hear what I hear, then we're not being effective as a crew. I remember once when you walked me through, step by step, on the telephone, coverage of a mass murder in a hair salon in Mesa, Arizona. When it was all over, and it ran 3.5 minutes, as I recall, when it was all over, I got a lot of credit for it, but I realized at first that secretly you were the one who were due the credit. I remember the time when Brinkley asked you a long and complicated question in doing a live cross-out from Iowa doing election coverage, I think, and he ended up with the question, well, Tom, what does all this mean? And you glared at the camera and you said, I don't know. In fact, you once wrote a piece for a journalism magazine that I remember in which you said, we will not have matured as a medium until the reporter is able to stand up at the end of the story and say, so there was this thing that happened today. What does it mean? I haven't got a clue. Well, a lot of people have come and gone in the last 30 years. Most of them left no footprints at all. But you did. You were able to influence a whole generation of reporters. And whatever I am today is partly due to you, something you'll have to answer for one day, I suppose. I won't say good luck, because you've always had plenty of luck. I'll just say goodbye, have some good times.
I don't think I ever told you this before, Tom, but back when I was a young lad, say in my early teens, I remember listening to you on the radio doing monitor pieces from Philadelphia, and you were my inspiration to get into broadcasting. I thought that anybody with your voice could make it in broadcasting, then there was a chance for me. And I remember the first time that we ever met. It was in the newsroom in New York in 1961, 34 years ago. As I recall, the brass had you in New York learning to try to sound like Jack Perkins when you did NBC Radio News on the Hour. It's too bad that you never really mastered Perkins' style, although you came very close, because think of it, you could have a new career hosting other people's work on the Arts and Entertainment Channel. The thing I really want to say, Tom, is that you gave me two pieces of advice when I first went to work for NBC that I have never forgotten, and is the best advice that I received. I was on my way to Cleveland for my first posting. I ran into you in the Northern Hotel in Billings, Montana. And I remember it was over drinks in the bar, drinks that I paid for, of course, that you told me, first of all, find out who wants it. And secondly, find out exactly what they want. At the time, I had no idea what you were talking about. But it didn't take me long to find out. And I remembered thinking later on that that was probably the finest advice anybody could have gotten. And through the 25 years I was with NBC News, it was the only advice you ever gave me that was worth a shit. As you prepare to retire, there's going to be a whole new world out there, a lot of new and exciting things to do. And the best part of it is you're no longer going to have to be at the sufferance of the new generation of infotainment mavens, if you get my drift. Good luck.
I should not confess this because it might endanger his objectivity, but we are friends with Tom Pettit, and that friendship has been tested by fire. I'll never forget when I had him out in my speedboat up there in Kennebunkport, Maine one time. We had a big wave. He fell to the floor, writhing in pain, floor of the boat, writhing in pain. And he came back into port, had a horrible back injury, was in great pain. Barbara turned to me and said, well, you might know you cracked up the one guy who has been fair to us all along. I don't want to sound defensive, but I can say that Tom Pettit was fair. Our friendship endured, and I am proud to salute him. He's one of the very best in the important television business. Congratulations, Tom. God bless you, and may your future be full of joy and happiness. And I hope you come back to Maine, and I promise no more rides in the Fidelity.
Goodbye, Tom, from everyone in London.
I first got to know Tom Pettit when I was really a rookie correspondent at NBC. I was sent up to Maine to cover the Maine caucuses in 1980. I was told I had to do a long Today Show spot on the state of Maine and what kind of place it was and so forth. And so we worked all day long. When I came back in that night, I met my editor and my producer for the first time. My editor was Freddie Cranford. My producer was Linda Elman. Now, Freddie took one look at Linda, and he said, Bodie, you're not going to be needed here tonight. I'll take care of cutting the spot. She and I will do it for you. So I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and turned on the Today Show, and sure enough, there I was in a beautiful opening shot with a beautiful opening shot of a Maine sunrise over Booth Bay Harbor. It was spectacular. The spot was very nice, and when it was all over with, I went down to the NBC editing rooms, and there I ran into Pettit, who said to me, "All right, pal, if that's the way you're going to play, you're not going anywhere at this network." Now, this was the senior political correspondent, and I figured out that it was because somehow or another, Linda and Freddie had taken Pettit's Booth Bay shot and put it in my spot. And so I went to Don Bowers, and I, being the rookie I was, I said, "Don, you know, Pettit can use the shot next. That'd be okay." And Bowers said, "Yeah, kid, and you could die." Now, I figured I was getting off to a slower start at NBC than I'd really counted on. But Tom Brokaw warned me. He said, "You know, Bodie, Pettit has a very, very big wingspan." Well, over time, Pettit and I got to know each other that year, you know, and we would fly together. Pettit had a first-class clause in his contract, and he would bring me up to first class and upgrade me because he said he could do that sort of thing. And he coached me. He said, "Get that same deal in your contract next time, Bodie. It's a good thing to have." And so I went to work on that. And he also said, there are certain rules that you've got to follow at NBC. Remember that it's only money and it's not yours. And Doug Keicher will tell you, don't cheapen the beat. Never cheapen the beat. So I followed those rules, and then a little later that year, it came to this particular scene on the Today Show.
Tom, I would suggest that perhaps Ronald Reagan is dead politically, that getting beat by George Bush in Iowa indicated an anti-Reagan vote as well as a pro-Bush vote. People feel he's going to the well once too often. Not that he's old, but that he is an old face.
But how much of a factor is it, Tom, that he didn't spend any time here in the Iowa?
I think that's a factor.
Could he reverse that by going into New Hampshire a lot?
Anything is possible in politics. I would just suggest, however, that as a working hypothesis, Ronald Reagan, for president, is effectively dead.
I wouldn't quite say dead. Dead's a long time, but certainly very close to it.
Pettit, that's your most famous moment in television. And you even persuaded Jack Germán to crawl out on that limb after you, didn't you? Now, this doesn't go away. Now comes this very important scholarly book written by a famous political scientist with loads of research assistants and hundreds of footnotes. And in this book, it says, 1988. Vice President George Bush is the odds-on favorite to win the Iowa caucuses. He finishes third behind Senator Robert Dole and televangelist Pat Robertson. Quote, "Bush is dead," intones television correspondent Ken Bodie. The columnist Robert Novak gives him a little more life. "I think Bush, if not dead, the pulse is a little light." Now, I have called this author and offered to bet him a bottle of 1986 Chateau Haut-Brion that he can't prove I said this. He's only got it wrong in the wrong year, the wrong candidate, and the wrong correspondent. Pettit, when do I get to quit atoning for your sins? But one thing, Pettit, this is the Booth Bay tape. You're retiring, and I've got it forever.
Hey, Tom, I've been doing some calculation. The numbers are staggering. We have been together in this company for almost 30 years now, through 8 news division presidents, through 7 presidential election cycles, through an untold number of laughs, and an infinite number of expense accounts that we would not want to go back and submit to any kind of polygraph testing. The fact of the matter is that you were genuinely one of my heroes when I first entered this business. You were, after all, from the heartland, from Iowa, and you had those little silly nonsense glasses that you wore, the kind of Wally Peeper frames, and you had that wonderful, droll, dry way of getting at the essence of any story. It's hard for me to believe now, but you came to the Omaha newsroom when we treated you like a visiting rock star of some kind. What I'll always remember, however, were those interviews that may not go down in the long reach of journalistic history as the kinds of interviews that changed the course of mankind, but they did give us a few bright moments. The lady who had won the Queen contest at the Takeoff Pound Sensibly convention in Los Angeles. She won because she had lost the most weight over a given period of time. she had gone from something like 400 pounds down to 320 pounds. And there she was with her little tiara, and you filled up your screen with her face. And then we heard your off-camera voice asking her, how did you get so fat in the first place? I always remember the late lamented Mrs. Miller. Remember her? She sang off-key. And as you described Mrs. Miller in your opening lines of that story, you said Mrs. Miller likes to whistle. And Mrs. Miller says the key to a good whistle is a good pucker. And you showed us a close-up of Mrs. Miller's pucker just at that moment. That, too, is fixed in my memory. But most of all, what I remember is the sense of family that we've all had, the good times, the achievements, the triumphs for NBC News, the friends that we made along the way, and the friends that we've lost as well. We've lost permanently and professionally from this organization. But when they come to write the history of NBC News, Pettit, they'll talk about you as being one of the founding fathers. The founding father who wore the mantle of enfant terrible so gracefully. We wish you the very best in your retirement, and you know the enormous amount of affection that I have for you and your family, Tom.
Well, Tomas, it's been a pleasure being your friend, which will continue, of course. Privilege being your colleague. We have so many great memories. Demopolis, Serb Hall, the harpoonist over at, And then, of course, there's the time that Bill Small told you to get a haircut. But there's only one way I can actually give you a sense of how much I'll miss you, and only one way in which I can bid you farewell. Boom, 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 goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, true love. I'm gonna go away and leave you, never to see you any. I'm gonna sail up on that ferry boat, never to return again. So goodbye, so long, forever, boom, 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 boom.